1985, Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg, two of science fiction's most beloved creators, produced a film about a ragtag group of kids trying to save their neighborhood by hunting for a pirate's treasure.
But what if? You guys, just what if this map could lead to One-Eyed Willy's rich stuff?
If you were a kid of the 80s or 90s back in ye old video store days, you watched it over and over, you quoted it, and you dreamed about being part of the adventure.
Oh, wow!
But here's the thing about the Goonies. Like that weird-ass Rube Goldberg machine with the chicken that opens Mikey's front gate, the movie is actually a result of a complex system, namely the cultural mores and realities of the 1980s. And no, I'm not just talking about Cyndi Lauper. You see, The Goonies is a movie that could only exist. It's only a product of the 80s. It just wouldn't make sense in any other time period. But don't worry, I can explain. The Goonies.
Tell us everything.
Everything. Okay, I'll talk.
First off, let me ask you something. Who are the main villains of The Goonies? Is it notorious gangster family, the Fratellis? One-Eyed Willy, the pirate, and his booby traps? Dirt and disorder that seem to be sending Mikey and Bran's mom over the edge? Or is it yuppies buying out the Goonies' homes and replacing them with golf courses?
You seem to be pretty sure of yourself.
The foreclosure is a definite.
That's right. The bad guys the Goonies are actually facing is Ronald Reagan. Well, sort of. The enemy is really the supply-side economic theory, the Laffer curve, which suggested that the more production was taxed, the less production and income are generated. This spurred Republican policy shifts like, anyone? Housing deregulation and implementation of, anyone? Trickle-down economics. Sure, teaching those concepts to a classroom is the cure for teenage insomnia, but it also resulted in a lot of poor and middle-class families feeling real-life consequences. And in The Goonies, we see Reaganomics in full force. The residents of the Goon Docks were being forced out of their homes and their sense of community.
What home? In a couple more hours, it ain't gonna be home anymore.
The thing about Troy's dad and the other yuppies is that they already have all the money. They're just trying to get more of it, even if it hurts others. And our heroes, you see, they're the exact opposite.
Because these are somebody else's wishes. They're somebody else's dreams.
And in 1985, it made a lot of sense to express that common anxiety through an adventure story. The Goonies is a tale of triumph over a very specific kind of adversity, which tons of poor kids in 1985 were all too familiar with. Those kids needed the Goonies. They needed to believe they had the power to save their community.
There'll be no more signing today or ever again.
Here's a piece of medical history you might not have known. Prior to the 80s, if a kid had a wheeze, the prescription was, shrug and a walk it off, Bobo. But in the early 80s, a study was done where 100 kids with a wheeze were given an inhaler. Result, 100% of them got better. Duh. Like Mikey, they had asthma. But the revelation was so new that there was a public panic over a non-existent epidemic of asthma. While that panic is long gone by now, in 1985, asthma carried with it a stigma. And since the Goonies were a group of outsiders, it made perfect sense for their fearless leader to have an instantly recognizable symbol which would define him as an outsider. Like asthma, for example. Or, if you're smart and you want to set up a parallel in your narrative, like only having one eye.
We had a lot in common, huh, Willie?
And if you don't think Mikey's primary character trait was asthma, John, would you play the clip, please?
Really?
You know what 80s kids loved? Water parks.
Wow!
You know what else they loved? Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Play pirate! We'll play pirate!
No!
You know what the entire third act of The Goonies is? a combination of those two things. So why haven't we seen the Mickey marketeers rebrand a sequel boot of The Goonies? Who's the real bad guy preventing that from happening? Well, it's kind of all of us.
I never felt so bad in my entire life.
Remember when I said that the Goonies were trying to save their families and their homes? That it's all about community? Well, we don't really do community quite the way we used to, right? We engage with each other on social media. We like, we retweet, we post comments, but our communal pool isn't our literal neighbors anymore. It's the internet. And that's not a bad thing, but it does make the stakes for the Goonies feel a little less serious once you flash forward to 2017.
Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
You move away from each other, you can still follow each other on social media. You can still FaceTime, share your Goonies fanfic where Steven Universe and the Crystal Gems crossover, hashtag Goonies Life. The point is, we haven't valued suburbia in the last decade the way we used to, because we don't need to.
What?
It all starts here.
Could things change though? Could the Goonies still get a comeback? Well, stranger things has happened. I'm literally talking about Stranger Things, the Netflix sci-fi juggernaut, which is set in the 1980s and is an unapologetic nostalgia fest dedicated to the suburban lifestyle of the time.
This way, come on!
We're culturally coming back around on the whole suburbs thing in a lot of our media. Fuller House, One Day at a Time, Fresh Off the Boat. The love for 80s and 90s suburbia is getting stronger by the day. Like, Artie from Pete and Pete strong. And let's just say that rich people having all the money and poor people feeling like their community is under attack is probably only going to get more relatable thematically in the next few years. Yeah.
Oh shit, what?
Anyway, silver lining, maybe we get a new Goonies movie. Anyway, I'm Daniel Roth with Sci-Fi Wire, and The Goonies, consider yourself explained. See you next time.